likely be late.
Okay, awesome. Well,
So,
I guess.
Yeah. Oh, I guess, wait, Jake he recorded it. Okay, you can.
Yeah, okay, so welcome. It is a little bit after 6. We will officially call this meeting of the Inclusivity Board to order. It's so good to see everyone. Hopefully everyone is staying warm. The weather's going to be changing, so I know lots of feelings of sick and things happen about this time, like as the barometer shifts, but we're happy to have you all here. Doug, welcome. I know you're online with us today, and Mayor Pro Tem DeMott. Yeah, good to see you both on the screen. I know we might be expecting a few more people that will trickle in, but we'll go ahead and get started. We have a pretty at least apparently light agenda this evening. There could be some things that come out, but we'll move right into old business, which is reviewing and approving the minutes from the last meeting that Michelle actually facilitated. So we have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, been motioned and seconded. Any questions or discussion?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Missed the meeting. My apologies. What was her comment about the bad match between Top Taco, 4th of July, and Craft Brew Fest? This is Kate Cook talking.
Oh,
Opportunities for community support.
for the board. They're not the most,
For needing help.
Us to be there.
It's helping.
like it doesn't,
Yeah, or
Bad partnership match.
well, yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't really give Inclusivity Board to have a place or a booth or a
activity.
role. You end up working or volunteering in it. And we've learned that that sort of distracts from the ability to talk about the board.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Great. Any other points of clarification or discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes as written from September?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Does anyone abstain? Okay, so moved. All right, moving on to our city council report. Mayor Pro Tem DeMont.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
You can.
I know that I missed you guys last month, and I think that's because of the Casa dinner, I want to say. Most recently, this last week, we approved the first reading of our budget, which is obviously one of the big things that council does. That was passed, Councilor Zadi was out sick, so I believe it was 5-1 that the budget was passed. And that also, so that sets the rates for water as well. It sets all our salaries for the year. It sets, our capital spending. So pretty much everything for next year is set in place now. Well, there'll be one more reading of that budget. We also did first reading to renew our municipal judge and our city attorney, although I think the city attorney only takes 1 vote. The judge takes 2 because it's in the charter written that way. So, and then a lot of the other stuff that we've been working on, we've had a lot of pre-application. So if you're familiar, the city, we've now changed our process so that people who are looking to develop in the city can come with a concept before they actually go into application, and they can go through that with the city council just to get our initial thoughts on it. Nothing in those meetings is actually binding in any way. It's just to kind of gauge a temperature, whether or not there are ways that they could approve it or we don't like it or whatever. I mean, and nothing even if we said we hate it, nothing stops them from bringing it forward and saying it meets criteria. But it's a practice that the mayor had seen that Broomfield does, and it kind of gives developers a foot up if there's things that they could change that maybe are more acceptable to the community. It's just a good opportunity. So we had a handful of those. And then I guess the other one of the first actual developments in Uplands since the last time we met has been approved. I know that's got a lot of light on it as far as a project. So those are kind of the biggies that we've been working on since last I was able to meet with you guys. I would say thank you to the folks who were able to make it on Monday for our Indigenous People and Columbus Day proclamations. The guests that Rich had invited and brought with him, I thought was fantastic. She had some very good words that she shared with the group, and I think that was, I mean, really was very, very in line with what I was hoping to accomplish. So, thank you again, Rich, for bringing those folks with, and hopefully, in the future we'll be able to do that Indigenous people again. And if they'd like to join us, maybe they'll bring more friends. So, that's all the things that I had kind of written down that I remembered I wanted to at least bring up with the group.
Great. Thank you. Any questions or thoughts or comments? Steve?
Dave, my understanding is our allocation as a board for funding won't be included in next year's budget. Is that correct?
Is what did Cody say something? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cody says yes.
That is correct. It wasn't included in the budget for 2024. It comes out of the city manager's office because I'm your staff liaison and I coordinate that budget.
So city manager decides.
The city manager's office is a department. It's not really a department, it's an office. Each department and office has a budget that's proposed, and then the full, but we all had to go through an exercise where we presented the budget savings to the city manager before got presented to council, and that was one of the things that we cut.
On the chopping block. I guess my question relates to.
And it's not so much it's chopped. I think we actually moved it to a different team. We have an equitable process coordinator in the city. You've met Armando. If I recall correctly, and I don't know what the final outcome was, our original recommendation was to pass those funds to him and his team and the work he does.
Well, I guess the question is just a general one for this board. If we come up with activities that we'd like to sponsor or partner with, can we come back in the future to the council, or it sounds like to me to the city manager?
No, you go to the council.
Oh,
You're the council's board.
okay.
Sorry.
To the council
Confusing.
and request funding.
I think that would be the appropriate avenue for that to happen. And there are ways that, that we can fund things. As far as like what was recommended in that realm, that's something that was recommended, and there wasn't much, to be frank, there was not much discussion around that change. But certainly I think to date, anything that you guys have brought forward, I can't think of a thing that we haven't been able to try to accommodate. So I would anticipate, if it's something that you guys think is good for the community, I'd say continue to bring it forward. And, I'll go, like I said, there hasn't been a thing I can think of that you guys have asked for that I haven't tried to advocate for. And so far we've been successful. The most recent one was, and I think this has happened since before the last time I met you, because I know I worked with Cody, because I missed the last meeting as far as those translating devices, and that was approved, if I recall correctly. So same kind of thing. And typically you guys aren't dealing with big dollar numbers, so it's, I hate to say it's a drop in the bucket, but in the realm of the overall budget, it kind of is.
In the bucket. Yes. Okay, thanks, Dave.
Yeah, and there's usually some wiggle room in both councils' budget. They have a sponsorship budget. There usually has an added contingency to it. So if there's something that's really pressing, we can ask to take it out of their contingency. City manager's office usually has a little bit, and something like supplies or contract services there, and most departments have some wiggle room. So depending on what it is, and if council approves it, we can find funds. Perfect.
Yes, Alan.
Yeah, overall, I was trying to go through all of the budget in there. I'm a masochist.
Determine whether or not they're dreaming. Here's Arthur to explain.
Oh,
Julian.
Julian,
You need a small object, potentially heavy, so that you can have.
sorry. There you go. Thank you.
Okay,
Oh, good job, Seth.
overall, is the budget smaller than it was this year?
That's kind of honestly subjective, because it depends on what portion of the budget. There are parts of the budget that, have grown. There are parts of the budget that shrank. Overall, the budget dollar numbers, I think, is actually bigger, because if typically from year to year, it grows, and it's all going to be dependent upon, like, it's almost like, I don't want to use the term zero-based budgeting because there's a council member who, uses that term in a much different way. But when you think of in terms of the budget, like anything that's budgeted, we have to have tax revenue to pay for it. So there's definitely been some shift in like the example that Cody gave. There are sometimes things that look like they get zeroed out or they grow, and some of it's just because of the way that the city manager has reorganized the organization. And a lot of that is more in line with just making it a much more efficient organization. Like, there was, I want to say, um, maybe 6 or so years ago, where there were departments that were broken into multiple departments, and a lot of that has been shrunken back down for efficiency under the new city manager. And every leader does things a little bit differently, so that's been some of the work that he's done. But I would have to get like specifics of what you're wanting to know, if it shrunk or not, to be able to really answer it, because it depends. The budget, to your point earlier, is so massive. There may be parts that are smaller, but there may be a good reason why it's smaller too, that maybe equates to those dollars being moved to the same kind of work, such as your guys' work, where they move that under that staff representative.
Well, specifically to that, I was told that since I do my street outreach, primarily for the homeless, most of it's in Westminster, and most of the people I deal with, I've been told that the city will no longer provide materials such as tents, sleeping bags, tarps, even like women's hygienic products. I can't even get tampons or pads. It's really hard.
And that was something that you were able to get through the homeless folks that do that work before?
Since March 2020.
So, I mean, that I'd have to say that when you get down to that line level kind of thing, that's a little into the weeds from where council sits. So
Okay.
if there, but with that being said, if you would do me the favor of kind of giving me some specifics via email, I will find out, because sometimes, I could at least find out what the change was, why the change was, and figure out if that's the right change, I guess, is typically how I would address that kind of question or concern. But I can't speak with any kind of knowledge as to at that level of the organization what they've done. I will say from the council's seat, we want to continue to fund the work as as staff is asking. So we have our and I know you're full aware of our continuum of care. But beyond that, when it gets down to what folks are doing on the ground, I don't always know those details.
Okay.
So I would have to lean on staff, but it would be helpful to kind of know, here's what you did before, here's what you'd like to be able to do, and what you're being told now, and so that I could get you the correct answers.
Great. Thank you. We'll have that conversation.
Perfect.
We can talk about that. So, okay, any other points of question or conversation?
I don't, this might be good for now, or maybe just in the community report, but just to talk a little, sorry, I just realized I can't see, you can't see me. Just to maybe talk a little bit about the Sheridan Green Elementary repurposing, since that's kind of a big community thing.
It has been what has filled my email box today.
I bet.
I know that they had another community meeting last night, and part of that was, if you go back and listen, there was a meeting with council a while ago where we talked about options, and council asked about going back out to the community again. It's a very hard situation. I fielded an email today with a resident who, really wants to see it stay in educational use. And to be honest, I gave her, Dave's personal opinion is I would have liked that too, but that ship was outside of the city's hands. That was Jefferson County. That doesn't mean that we couldn't decide it is an educational use, but in terms of what she was, stating, So that is not a done deal. I think that, there were some recommendations given to council where we said we're not ready to make those decisions. We want more input. And there were some options that we were given that weren't part of the initial outreach to the community. So, that's why it got pushed back out last night. I don't know who all was able to make it last night. I know I work Tuesdays. I pretty much work open to close at my family's restaurant, so I was not able to attend.
Yeah,
But I did.
Councilors Seymour and Baker were there last night. I was there.
And that the mayor was there, but she left to go support our folks in the Jewish community at that they hosted I think it was a vigil last night, and so she was our representative at that. So she was there as well. But I haven't been able to talk to any of those folks and kind of get their 2 cents of how that meeting went. And I anticipate that staff will bring back what they heard from the community last night, and we'll continue that conversation. But nothing is a done deal, but it certainly is. To me, it's a complicated issue, and we're really trying to balance what's the right use of that building. And I know, at least from my perspective, and I've heard this from a couple of other members, that's a building that those of us in Jefferson County have paid for some time through our taxes. So I know some of us are sensitive to what happens with that, and the fact that there has been dollars spent on that facility over its lifetime, and from taxpayers of Jefferson County.
Right, exactly. The one thing that I came away with, and I just wanted to, I'm bringing it up because I think it does pertain to what we do here on the board. I was a little taken aback that staff didn't know what the Senior Resource Center was. That's down in Wheat Ridge.
That's surprising. I used to sit on their board.
City manager, everybody who was there last night were like, what was that called? Like, they literally had to take notes. So I was a little.
We do have some who, I mean, like, the economic development director's only been here a year.
Right, okay.
Mark Freitag's only been here.
Right, no. He's like, I'm new, and I'm like, I totally get that.
So
But
it might be folks who also maybe don't normally work in that realm, or might be too new.
yeah.
Knowing who they are would be beneficial.
Yeah, and I think the thing that it raised is just that perhaps the needs of our seniors in our community are not necessarily at the forefront of what staff is working on. So that might be something that we maybe try to figure out a good way to maybe sort of communicate through council to maybe just make sure that becomes something that is like a top consideration, because we do have an aging community. I mean, we've done our numbers and we've got a lot of folks in need.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that back to me, Michelle. I will tell you, I know that Councilor Nermella has very much championed that cause, being her work on Dr. Cog for the council. It's something that she brings up pretty consistently, as well as, like I mentioned, I'm passionate enough that I actually served on the board of Senior Resource Center for a while prior to being on council. So I know we have a partnership with them, but that it is important that those new folks understand those good relationships. So I appreciate you at least bringing it up so that we can make sure that folks in the organization are all familiar with them, because I know that we do still have some level of partnership. Actually, Chris Lynn, who I used to serve on the board with, who is now the CEO over there and has been since we hired him when I was still on the board, he has come multiple times and done the Older Americans Day proclamation with us, and prior to COVID, and I think actually since COVID we've done at least one. But a good call out, and Cody, if you will help me remember that we make sure that we bring that feedback to staff.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to the city manager directly about it.
Okay.
So and he probably was all like, oh my God, this one is really intense, but which I was, but
you talked to the right person. We'll make sure
he wasn't.
But I would say
also that we partnered with them. So
he's not even been here full full year.
No, I know
The
that, I know
hundreds
that.
of
So I was just hoping
organizations.
that somebody could bring that to his attention.
Yeah, and we can check back in with him
Yeah.
on that. But I do think that staff has seniors as a forefront. We work, I know that there are developments and economic development. There's lots going on
Okay.
on a pretty regular basis, and it's a regular conversation at council meetings, as Mr. Councilor or Mayor Pro Tem has said,
Yeah.
Councilor Normella specifically,
Right.
her work on Dr. Cog, and we've shared studies. They're talking about the VIA transportation service right now and still providing those services, or how that might work in
Yeah.
2024. So I think it's very much at the forefront of staff's mind.
It's, I mean, at least it's not with the folks that were liaising with the community last night.
Right.
So I think my point again is it's a little distressing. I'm not saying, I'm not accusing the entirety
Yeah.
of the city government to not be concerned, but what concerns me is that the people that are liaising with the community aren't aware, and that is a potential
I really do think
use.
almost everybody who was there last night has been new to their position or the
Yeah.
city in the
Okay.
last year. So,
Yeah. So,
it's, you
and
know,
maybe that's a
Yeah.
consideration
and
also.
Well,
I'll make sure we
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
that conversation.
I would call out too that Councilor Nermella specifically brought that up with that building when we first started talking about it. But you have to think too that some of these uses are folks who have reached out to us to date. And so,
Correct.
that's one of the other things to keep in mind. But I would also, highlight back to what Cody said. If you think about some of, like, one of the things that as we near build out that council in my entire, almost 6 years now has brought up is different levels of senior options. Because like, I think about my folks and other seniors I know, there are different levels that we need available. So we need, market rate senior housing. We need some that is more assisted, some that's less assisted, some that's, more affordable. Like it's a big nut to crack. And so we have certainly, tried to say, let's make sure we have, as we get options for seniors, that they're diverse options for seniors. And one of the, like, there's been a couple that we've approved, even then the deals fell apart. Like there was supposed to be a active adult living development that was going to be condos off 108th and Wadsworth, and for whatever reason that didn't end up penciling out. There's one in the new downtown that's more of a high-end senior type of living, but to my point, there are the needs for all different levels of seniors of, who have hit their golden years at different income levels. And so I think that's important as the city continues to age, that we have options for folks who want to stay in the city
Right.
or move
Donna
to the
had
city for that matter.
Yeah.
Donna had specifically brought up transportation
Mhm.
as an issue, that it's something she cares about. She brought it up in one of our meetings.
Yeah, and she said that, they were always looking for people to help with grocery support or transport or, medical,
Yeah, and the Seniors
That-
Resource Center is down in Wheat Ridge. I mean, it's not convenient, even though Westminster is a partner with them. It's actually not a very convenient location, because it is, I mean, it's basically like Arvada, where Arvada and Westminster meet, it's pretty far south.
And is that the only resource center that?
Of that kind and that size, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
They
And
have
so
a
what-
couple different facilities, senior resource. They also have Evergreen House, but to your point, none of it is this far north. Which is
Right.
like typically senior resource. They do some stuff out of the MAC. You'll sometimes see their cars up at the MAC. But their transportation is, I mean, one of their biggest facets of what they do. They do in-home care. They do a lot of different things, but one of the things I'd call out, that if you listen to the budget conversation, and I believe at least a couple of you may have still been there, but Counselor Nermella, again, there's it's called VIA. It's a transportation, and it's one that helps people who are maybe, have various reasons why they don't have transportation. And the amount of money we were spending on it for what we were getting wasn't great. So one of the things she asked that she got support from me and other council members is, as we look into next year, because there were options that like RTD has that maybe still cost money, or Uber, which Uber, their service maybe isn't good for people who maybe are in a wheelchair. So the direction we gave to staff is let's rethink that and look at how we could better spend those dollars with some other organizations that give that kind of transportation. So maybe Cody, maybe that we bring up Senior Resource Center as one that they look at while they do that work, because I know that the city manager agreed to do that. And because like from my perspective, if we could find a group that's already doing that work and we could take that good amount of money that we were spending on that, and potentially maybe they could add routes or whatever for Senior Resource. Or the other idea that I floated was with like the Uber and RTD that still costs. Maybe we could do some sort of level of grant for people who can't afford even the what is considered reasonable to some folks. Sometimes that's a lot of money to somebody else. So we asked them to really look at those numbers of the demographics that Councilor Namella asked the staff to pull and rethink that going into next year, so that we can try to figure out how we get the most people served as possible from those dollars, instead of having only a handful of people served from what was a good amount of money if you separate it out over the people who use that service. And I can't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I know that they did provide those to us through the budget process.
One more question for Dave. You raised the whole issue of housing, obviously, as being critical and challenging for a variety of populations. But I sat in on a plan commission meeting in September, and it came up because I was notified about a development in our neighborhood. And I had the opportunity to say, have you given thought to other possibilities besides 19 units of $2 million houses, which I'm not quite sure is a critical need in this community. And what the response was, well, we're waiting on the housing study. So my quick question is, when does the housing study happen, and will that
It
impact us?
started.
Okay.
Yep. Sorry, Mayor Protem. Do you want me
No,
to-
go ahead. I know probably in more details than I do at this point.
It's already
I know.
begun. I've put it in Mark's slides twice now. There's an open house October, I want to say the 25th, but that might just because another date's in my head. Let me make sure I have that confirmed. And there's also a web page where you can take a survey that they're taking community input, and then they're setting up a couple additional community input opportunities later in October and November. So it is October 25th from 5:30 to 7:30 at the MAC. They're gonna do a workshop and review the draft of information and take input. So
Well, thank you.
yeah,
The-
and the website is long. If you go to the city website and you type in housing needs, you should be able to find it. The website is westminsterco.gov/business/economic development/housing needs assessment. So
Do a search on housing needs.
yeah, if you do housing needs, it should pop up. Let me check. I'll make sure that's accurate too.
They did send out an email on that.
Yeah, I got some.
I got it, and I took the survey.
I suspect you'll be seeing a lot of it, that they're asking to share it every opportunity we get. So I think it's definitely.
Two other quick things, because I'm not going to be able to hang out for your whole meeting tonight. And so I want to make sure I get any questions answered that you guys, or anything that you want me to bring back to council, that I get that on my radar. But around the affordable housing, we as a council have tried to be, in my opinion, have tried to be as balanced as possible, understanding, we do need things at the different ends of the market, because that does ultimately help affordability in my mind at all levels, which gets into, people's perspective of the housing market and what the challenge is. And so there's a lot of different opinions out there around that. But I will say that we as a city, from the understanding I got so far, is we were quick to jump on the dollars that are going to be around affordable housing, around some of the things that happened at the state legislature and the voters voted in. So we will be able to get some of those dollars for affordable developments, because council took staff's direction and got in line quick. So that opens doors. It's not a for sure, but at least gets us on the radar and gives that tool to our folks to be able to go after those affordable things. Ultimately, it's, always challenging because you're often dealing with people with private property and they can decide how to develop it. But those programs are often set up to make it attractive for them to build a certain kind of building because of the way it could pencil out if they get those public dollars. If you look at things like the uplands, there's going to be a lot of different mix. And so some of those programs are going to help them do some of the, affordability things that potentially could come forward. And so, I am glad that the majority of council has agreed with staff's asks when it comes to that, so that we make sure that we jump on those opportunities where they exist.
Thanks.
It's the second link when you search, but I'll send it to you as follow-up tonight.
I've got it in the minutes.
Oh, you do? Oh, of course you do.
Yes, he does.
Never mind. I forgot who it is. Taking minutes.
Miracle worker.
Okay. Any other questions or points of conversation for Mayor Pro Tem tomorrow? Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. We appreciate
Thank you.
Appreciate your work.
Yep. I figured, Justin, that's the day that I don't show up in person, and there you are, and you're not remote today.
I know. Yeah, I know. Here I am. So,
well, thanks, guys. I appreciate your work, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, Dave. Okay. I think there's some thoughts and some sort of sidebars we could probably have some conversation on since we have a lighted agenda tonight. But we'll go through the agenda right now into new business. December schedule. December meetings have always been traditionally a little hard because I think it's a hard time for people. It's sort of a time for many and a lot of different cultures around like celebration and sort of like reflection. So the one proposal that we might have is how would you all feel, because there's not like a lot of business that we typically have in December, if we tabled December's meeting and we had no November meeting and came back for January. Would everyone feel okay or comfortable with that?
The only
Be there in December anyway.
Yeah.
The only thing I have on that is because of the money that we have left that we need to spend, that would only give us, here we are, October, it gives us November. To
That's
come
the
up with
same thought
something.
I had, but I think we might have something to
Yeah.
We'll.
use it.
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
I think we can have that discussion before we're done tonight.
Yeah, I
I would also say asking to spend money in December, your meeting would be the 13th and the council would make a decision on the 18th. Remember too, it's a brand new council. That council have only met, that'll be their second meeting. It's, and then spending it in less than 2 weeks is also probably a little fast for what's realistic. I mean, it took from the last meeting and approving the translation devices and then council the following Monday. And then we ordered the following week and they didn't arrive and payment didn't hit until I think that was a 2 or 3 week period. So I think it might put some pressure to get you done in November period. I think I would like to hope that you're not making a recommendation to council on December 18th in hopes that you can spend that last few dollars.
Early December meeting, even if it's only 10 weeks
I think we've got you covered. So
Okay.
let's.
Yeah, we'll have that conversation.
And the challenge.
You let us know if.
Wink, wink.
Yeah. The challenge, yeah, we were all eyeballing each other. I think we've got an
No, we've
idea.
got an
Okay.
idea.
Yeah, that,
So-
something came up.
And I said, we'll add that. So traditionally,
Come back it.
yeah, December has been a challenge for people. Like it's a hard time to meet, so.
Okay. Fine with me.
The proposal, I won't make an official recommendation, but the proposal would be that we adjourn after the November meeting and
Do you
then
need a motion for that?
we probably should.
All right. Well, I move that we skip our December meeting.
Second.
Okay, it has been motioned and seconded. Any discussion?
Since I don't know what's going on, when the vote comes up, I'm going to abstain.
Yeah, you have that.
That's
right
fine.
to abstain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't like what's.
Okay, all right. Hearing nothing else. All in favor?
Aye.
I.
Is there any opposed? And is there an abstention? Okay, thank you very much. So moved that we will meet in November as the last part of this calendar year, and we will adjourn back in January. So
Are any of you up for
Probably.
terms?
I think a bunch of us are.
I think a bunch of us.
I have no idea. I pay no attention.
Just thinking.
I would
like
imagine.
it's
It's possible.
October 15th.
Entirely possible.
I actually think it's
When that's coming up.
Forever.
and
Votes
It's entirely possible.
Yeah.
I don't think any of you are
You read the
done with your,
legislation.
I don't think we
You don't
hit the
exist.
term
No, we
limit for another, I think till
We didn't.
2020, I think it's 2026
Well,
is when you
you
hit
this is task
If-
force.
or 2025.
No.
The task force doesn't count
Yeah.
towards your.
Oh, okay.
My renewal was last year, and I believe that I was in the first wave of people who are, they spread them out so we're not all hitting term limits at the same
Right.
time, and I was in the first wave. So if you didn't have a renewal last year, I think you've got one this year if you're an old timer.
I
Yeah.
think I had a little.
I think like we still have a
And
lot.
Jillian and
Okay, they're term
You may
limited
have been
off.
that
Okay,
first
then I think I have one more year
How,
left.
how would I know?
I don't know, I'm gonna try to find out while we're sitting. You would think like, and be like, hey, sorry, buddy.
We
Oh,
serve it.
here I have a document called 2022 Inclusivity
All
Board
right.
Terms and Term
there
Limits.
you
So
go.
there we go.
Perfect.
Rich, your term limited, term end, your 4 2-year terms ends in 2025.
Oh,
Doug,
goodness.
2027, Seth, 2026,
Oh,
Michelle, 2026, Miguel, 2026, Megan, 2028, Refugio, 2026, Justin, 2026, Donna, 2026, Piper is no longer on our board, Jillian, 2028, Steve and Alan, 2029. So we got time.
Okay,
There you go.
okay, good.
So you're the future of our, you're the future of our board. So you gotta,
we're still only
yeah, I know. Okay.
not real.
So I would like to propose adding, since the money is a topic of conversation, can we propose adding this to the new business conversation now? Would everyone be comfortable with that?
Yes.
Okay. So as the discussion happened that, you were talking, Alan, and had asked Mayor Pro Tem Demont about, where's the funding for supporting, goods and necessities for our displaced population? We all kind of looked at each other and we're like, well, why don't we see if I'm not mistaken, you correct me if I'm wrong, why don't we figure out the balance of the funding and put that to that very effort?
I was thinking specifically of the women's hygiene materials. I mean, tents are available some places, but
Yeah.
I don't really know. You know all that better than I do.
Yeah,
But I was specifically thinking of the women's hygiene. I can't imagine living out in the,
I tell you, I am seeing many,
yeah.
it's like, it's gotta be almost 50-50 out there with men and women.
well, Alan, and because you have made this such a close point to your heart, it is to all of us, but you're one of the people that are out there on the streets talking to people. I would feel comfortable with, make a recommendation to use those funds in a way that maybe you would recommend as far as like, what would be the biggest, what would be the biggest impact with the money that we have? What is the
Yeah, I don't recall what our balance is from last.
something less than,
I think we only spent $300 or $400 on and I think we got 20 of them. So, I mean, really were not expensive.
Oh, geez, we could have
They're
bought
super, and we got like a charger for them. I know, but at some point. It won't take
We
that
thought it
many.
was gonna be
Maybe gonna
3,000 or
use.
4,000.
Yeah, no, what Seth found was inexpensive and I found some other ones that were even better and had some,
Oh.
and
That's, yeah.
I think it was still less than 1,000, so I think you're probably around
Amazing.
6,000 range.
Great, everybody.
You're saying we can get more for that money?
Well,
I'm saying at some point, what I said was that we got double the number you asked for.
Uh-huh.
I think we got
Great.
20 of them,
Wow.
but
for less money.
But that for less money, but also at some point, there's too many of them and then they're just
Right.
excess,
Extra sitting in the
right?
closet. Yeah.
So we got what seemed like the reasonable
Yeah.
amount for what the team
Yeah.
needed.
That's cool.
So the point being, we still have a balance.
Yes.
What do we do with it?
yeah.
A big one.
And,
What's your recommendation?
So yeah, what is
So,
the thing that?
I just messaged Kate to ask her about this and what the need is. And she said they are still giving things out. Specifically, I had asked hygiene products and she said they're no longer distributing tents as that was part of emergency COVID orders. Instead, the Rangers, EMS, co-responders, have access to the supplies and the navigators purchase or have donated to those. So they're still getting supplies
Okay,
from the city.
Well-
The only thing they're not getting are tents.
For how long?
okay, so I'm going to put an asterisk as an exclamation. Explanation. Maybe it is an exclamation. I just came from there and you can see this says Adams County. So I'm like with Adams County sanctioned volunteer. But I had started pretty much with Westminster. And just a quick history. We had RJ Toledo was the first, the original homeless navigator. He moved out of state. And during the period of when he was left and they were hiring, which became Ash Rudd, who just left, Kate had asked me, could I basically be like a surrogate? There are things I couldn't do, but I could hand out all those items that we had, including the tents and everything. And I was just told a few weeks ago that I wouldn't be able to do that anymore, that I am working through the county. The county may sometimes say, well, it's the city. So the county hasn't said that to me directly. They're just saying the county no longer, or the county currently has nothing for me to hand out. So,
And the city is using their staff to hand it out so they can manage their resources. So the park rangers, fire EMS, and co-responders all have access to the supplies. The navigators are not handing them out because they're dealing with housing.
And
It's
I-
what Kate.
and I
So us adding more supplies is not, they're not in need.
no, I'm not saying adding that they need to, well, maybe they do need to add more supplies. I'm saying, I was out today. Last week I hit 45 people. This week, much smaller, only about 35 people. Every single one of them who is in contact with various, whether it's PD or whether it's the Rangers, is asking me right now, sleeping bags, they're asking me. So they're not getting there. So I just say, you know, if I've been doing this and I'm doing it for the county, it's like, use your volunteer who can be out there and reach them. But so it's a city choice on this. So let's hear what you're talking about.
Does Kate specify what they have? Do they have sleeping bags?
I can ask her. She's online.
I was told that I'm not doing that anymore because I'm with Adams County.
Stepping on
Oh,
through.
I see. Okay.
Oh, come on.
All right.
Isn't City of Westminster part of Adams County?
Half and half.
Half and half, yeah.
Half and half, yeah.
Partially Adams, partially Jefferson.
So
Mostly Adams.
just to tell you, I don't know whether it's a dollar thing. That's why I was asking about the budget, because I was told this. So I'm just trying to figure out
Understood.
how do I serve the citizens, the unhoused of Westminster, even though you're saying that, yes, the police, fire, and the Rangers have these, but if I'm having the people who are on the street who are saying, I'm not getting this.
Then you call the navigator and ask them to visit.
Okay, navigator, okay. It's not.
They have sleeping bags. We do not, as a city, use volunteers. We don't have the staff to adequately oversee volunteers in the field.
No.
So Westminster
something-
doesn't have this.
This is something brand new.
This isn't new. I know that
Well,
the city doesn't have
I've been doing
volunteers to address, but the city does not. I know in my time here, I don't believe that the city has had volunteers to specifically support people experiencing homelessness because we have a volunteer program and I know what falls in that volunteer program. So as far as I know, there has not been a formalized volunteer program hosted by the city of Westminster and supervised by City of Westminster staff in this realm.
Except that we're going back to, as I'm saying,
I would say with the exception of point in time.
March 2020, when I started and was asked specifically by Kate, could I do that?
You're a rogue.
And
You're a rogue.
and I continued all the way through until of just a few weeks ago. So,
Well, it seems like this isn't the first time we've heard of it. Well, we have resources, but the people who need the resources aren't getting the resources. This isn't the first time we've heard this. So where's the breakdown?
And what should we be doing?
Cody?
in order to-
The city doesn't have enough staff.
and because
No.
when we had the two navigators, they would,
we also-
the two navigators would ask me, have you seen such and such a person? Can you get such and such to a person? And the navigators were supplying
This
me.
feels like a conversation that you should be having with Kate, who supervises the navigator program.
No, I
think that this
I
is
had a
the
brief-
right place.
Okay, I had a brief conversation with her when she was here right before, and all she said was, you're Adams County, period. So,
So the city doesn't have enough staff, but they don't have the ability also to oversee a volunteer effort to be able to do this very thing.
We're having a very hard time even having navigators and keeping them employed.
And I'm
Because the
wondering.
burnout rate is high.
Understood. And I'm wondering if maybe, and this is speculation on my part, but just kind of understanding, you're saying there's an issue with resources that relates to staff. Maybe there are drop-off points that aren't as accessible, or maybe there are access points to where, these people can certainly, have access to park rangers or whatever if they're in the area. But if they're not in that immediate
Right.
area, they're not maybe able to get those resources. So I guess the question would become, one, would there be anything that Kate could use this money for, since she's sort of the gatekeeper of this work?
Kate suggests that we support food pantries. There's a drastic increase in the need for, and
Food
with
pantries.
continuing food costs.
Sounds like a great idea.
That's a great idea too.
Growing Home,
Say growing up.
Presbytery, the Westminster Presbyterian
Yeah.
Fish, and Tri-Cities Baptist.
Cool. And there was something else that I cooked up yesterday. It just sort of popped in my head when I was thinking about how we had purchased the translation headsets. Do we have a specific program within, what's her name? Is it Martha Heinz?
Well, it depends on what you have to.
Volunteers for events.
The volunteers for
coordination.
events go through the special events team.
Right,
So
okay.
They manage those volunteers.
Right. Have we ever established, as a city, have we ever established a program where we solicit from our volunteer list folks that are bilingual? To see if we can try to populate events with folks that can provide translation services? And that would be inclusive of things like ASL, for example.
I don't know. I would say with the large special events, those are things like Westy Fest and
Yeah.
the arts.
I would
stuff.
imagine we have access to
There's-
people that maybe.
And I don't know
have
the
that
answer to
capability.
that. Yeah, and we have a bilingual merit program internally, which we certainly utilize on a all the time basis.
Yep.
When it comes to events like a town hall with council, we contract that out.
Right, I've seen that, yeah, yeah. I'm
So-
thinking more of just like more community
Yeah,
facing events.
I don't
Okay,
know that that's something they ask or seek out in there.
yeah.
Well, we can spend this money soon.
Yeah. It just might be a good suggestion coming from council to city manager perhaps, like that we maybe make something of an attempt to put more translation services into public events, but we could maybe do that through our volunteer core basically, rather than having to always pay out of pocket for things.
Yeah, and I don't know that they even have those services at the large events.
No, not-
And I know that they struggle to get volunteers, so
Yeah.
it might be limiting.
This could be an opportunity for some of our student leaders, looking for college credit, looking for
Right.
internship
So
credit.
we have a youth advisory
Ooh.
panel, and that panel had the lowest number of applications, I think, in its history this year. So they're finding other places to do their service, it seems like.
the conversations have shifted.
It did shift just a hair.
It did, but.
It did, but we're
connected.
throwing some ideas out there on,
Kate's suggestion is food banks,
yep.
So
and I hope the lawyer's not going to tell us to do that because you can't feed everybody.
Make a really good point.
Well, I think we can, but not given the current setup.
No. I think is we can't tell people,
We can't choose them. We can't say yes or no. We can't approve or deny people.
right, but we can just give it.
Correct.
So I would move that we use the remaining budget to support local food pantries, such as Growing Home, Westminster Presbyterian, and Tri-Cities Baptist.
We just add fish, all caps, FISH after Westminster Presbyterian.
Sure.
Yes, yeah.
Second
Yeah,
motion.
yeah, I know there, I know Westminster Presbyterian is, yeah. You could go ahead and.
We have a motion and a second, so any more discussion?
My thought is mainly, this is a thing that is really straightforward, that uses up the budget and that we can just do right now. Don't have to worry about more, and we know that it'll be very effective. And in particular, I know that always, I'm seeing all kinds of things where food pantries are saying, just give us money. Don't give us stuff.
Yeah,
Give
it's
us money
flexible.
because we can use it
You can
more
get
efficiently.
more than a can of beans.
Doug?
Do we need to be more specific on how much or what percentage we're giving to which one of the organizations? And do we need to be careful, based on what has been said previously, to include as many organizations as we can think of?
Is that the any and all, you mean? Discussion. We brought up that one time, if we do it for one, you have to do it for all. Remember you
Asking
brought
the
that?
attorneys while we're sitting.
Yeah, that's kind of my fear, but
Let's just do it and ask for forgiveness.
That
We can always come back and say we can't do it.
And then we have
to
people
do something.
applying. So
Might
I
as
think
well know now.
if we direct the funds.
Well, maybe that's what we do. If not this, then what? So that council has, so we can tell Mayor Pro Tem, Inclusivity Board recommended this, the attorney's office said no. What, so do you have another, I
Well,
guess, secondary idea?
I would, this doesn't directly address what you're saying, but it sort of does.
Okay.
And I'll recuse myself on this vote because I have a connection with Growing Home. But I really would strongly recommend supporting Growing Home. They have a food bank, but they're more than a food bank. They do community gardens, they do family counseling, they do parenting classes. So their resources go beyond being a food bank. And I suppose if you want to be real specific, you say anybody who does all those things will get the funds.
So the only reason why I brought up that whole like volunteer and translation services is whether or not, now that we know that how inexpensive the translation devices are, whether or not we should earmark some additional funds for another wave of those to come in. But I wanted to double check with you first, just to see whether or not the volunteer program would be interested in soliciting, folks out of their database to do translation services. Like if there was a specific ask to volunteers, like if you do a generic, like, hey, you want to work for Harvest Festival, like people would be like, I'd rather just attend it. But if you come at them with an ask of, hey, we would love to provide translation services for some of our community members. We know you're Spanish speaking or you're whatever, would you be up for doing a short.
Does this?
So
fall
those-
in with-
You know what I mean? Things
So
along those lines.
those translation devices are
I think
available
it fits
to
into
that
the
team. They
framework.
actually
They are,
given that
okay.
team now. So there's 20 of
I
them.
mean,
Okay.
we have
Oh, there's
to have a
20.
motion
I think
if we
they
went
got
that
20.
way.
Oh, I thought we were getting like less than that too.
No.
But we got
We
more,
started with
more
10.
or less.
Yeah,
Okay.
more for less.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's 20, is it one translator, 20 receivers, or is it, I thought we were going to do like 2 or 3 or something like that, right?
I'm wondering about an
there's at
ASL
least 2
translator.
different systems, I think.
There you go.
Yeah.
At least
Well,
that's-
and my wonder is with this money right now, we have some, not control, if you will, but we have some agency in how we spend this money. I wonder if future translation devices could be a project that we propose per Mayor Pro
Oh,
Tem.
that's a great idea too.
And then we
Yep.
can specifically use that as a project that we would recommend for city council for funding. so
Right.
that we could actually look at that as a specific project to fund those additional pieces. Right now, the money that we have, we have some agency over. We wouldn't be able to ask, for example, city council to give money to growing homes. But we can have control over this money, and then we can maybe in the next step, does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. No, I'd be on board with that.
So Jillian,
Just want to put a.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah, Gillian. Yeah, thank
Oh.
you.
Perfect.
Hi, everybody. Sorry for the wait there.
No.
So just to, I'm multitasking as I always have to do. So it sounds like we have some leftover budget money. We're trying to decide where and how to spend it. And there's some confusion over who would get it. If we're not the ones necessarily making this decision, since we have a month before the next meeting, do we want to maybe solicit and say any groups that want to come to the next meeting and ask for part of our budget? And then we can vote on, that's a good argument. We can give money to this group because it's our budget.
We don't want to do that because that's specifically the thing where the lawyer says we can't say yes or no. If that happens, we have to say yes to everybody. If we.
No, Jillian.
Okay.
No, and Jillian, thank you for that, because that's what kind of the money originally was earmarked for. We did have this
Okay.
sort of grant program, so it's not, don't think I don't think it's a bad idea, but because they've gotten pretty strict with their audits and things of that nature, they're very much making sure we don't fall even inadvertently in any sort of weird political line. So I think that, but yes, we
Very
don't.
nice way to
I
say
just,
it.
We
I just
don't-
wanted to make sure that I understood what the issue was, because on the one hand, it seems fair to be like, well, it's our money. Anyone who wants to come and ask and can make a good argument for this is for everybody and we're not showing favorites. But I also understand wanting to avoid a tragedy of the commons where, okay, everybody gets 50 cents.
Yeah.
We ordered
Yeah.
4 sets of the translation
Oh.
devices.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, but Jillian, thank you. No.
That's awesome, actually.
I think they come in sets of 10. So we were over and beyond. Sorry.
And then something that was brought up earlier, which I have to credit the mayor pro tem about, is transportation for seniors.
Yeah.
Would it be something that we might be interested in providing, is maybe, some money to a transportation service to specifically bring seniors maybe for the holiday lighting or something like to that effect?
Have to be that specific, because I think that would be a lot of money, probably more than we
Was it?
have.
Okay, is it? I don't know how much.
But you're
that
not talking about a
costs.
program, you're talking
No,
about.
no, just an event that's happening in the tail end of this year, that type of thing.
Well, could we go to RTD and say, hey, can you spend $5,000 in the next 3 months on transportation?
I don't think is it RTD that runs the VIA?
Well, they have.
Oh, no, it's not.
No,
There's
it's a private service, isn't it? Yeah.
And the city
Never mind
contracts
RTD.
for them for, I think it's the full year, so it's through the end of this year.
Why doesn't
Here,
RTD do it, by the way?
my only,
Really?
RTD,
Yeah, we already give them money.
RTD has its own,
Yeah.
its own services
They do.
where they do something similar. I think in partnership with Uber and Lyft or something like that, so.
Okay.
Transportation services, good idea, but who coordinates and how is it?
Right.
Yeah, and that's-
Then you're putting
that's
stuff
the-
on staff to do,
Okay.
and there's at least 2 real big ones before the end of the year, so
Yeah.
that's probably,
Yeah.
will be more of a challenge.
I think for the time of year, it's getting colder. Here's what I'd love to see. I'd love to see a funding of an absolute, like a homeless shelter here in
Oh,
this
yeah.
city. I'd love to see a senior satellite resource center here. I keep on hearing of all these resources, but we have all of these new developments. And to your point, as I'm sitting there thinking, and this is no blame, but as a thriving city, as a prosperous city, we have to do a better job in the long term of like how we're sustaining programs and not just throwing out sleeping bags.
Yeah.
I mean, we
That's
have to do that. So I'm with everyone in this regard. I think probably though, with everything that's taking place, talking to Alan, listening to everyone, this may be the easiest way that we can ensure that that money at least is made to a good cause. And frankly, I don't mind saying it. I'm not connected to Growing Home. If we say, you know, we have a thriving partnership with Growing Home, the city does as well. Let's maneuver it because they have a multifaceted level of service. It's not just a food pantry, and they could use that money as they see fit. They have people there that can make those decisions. It would be.
Obviously, we're thinking about increased need at this point.
Yeah.
Well, and especially with the
Yeah,
holidays.
I'm glad
Yeah.
you said that, Justin,
That's true.
because I was actually just going to make a motion to that effect, that we just
Seth has to modify.
put it all
his-
to Growing Home, whatever the remaining
Yes.
fund is.
I would
Growing Home.
accept as a friendly amendment the suggestion that we just change it to Growing Home.
Yeah, exactly.
So unless anyone objects, I'm happy with that.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
I'll
Any
recuse
further
myself from the
discussion?
vote.
Nope.
Okay. All right. All in favor of putting the balance of whatever funding we have to Growing Home for their services and support to all of the community in need? In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sure. Okay. Is there anyone opposed? And we have an abstain.
Recuse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a recuse. So, okay. Well, then I think we are so moved.
So
Can we
Hey.
explore
find out
that?
what the
And
balance is and how do we notify them?
Well, we have to ask council because it's their money,
Yeah.
so.
Well, it's
It's
taxes.
the city's, yeah, it's the taxpayers' money and the council. So first I have to make sure it's okay with the city attorney's office. I have emailed 3 of them. So we'll see which one responds to me.
well, we made the motion.
Times, yeah.
If-
Do we have to ask the city attorney for any kind of expenditure?
I do before it goes to council because it's not real fun when the counselor asks for something and the city attorney interjects and says, actually, no. So I like to cover the bases before I put Mayor Pro Tem in the asking seat. Yep. Welcome to local government. Do you want to come up with a contingency plan in case we cannot donate the money to Growing Home?
Well, if we can't donate the money to Growing Home and we can't, yes, we could, I'll go and buy a bunch of sleeping bags and then I'll personally distribute them. I mean,
I would think that wouldn't be an issue because if we did it with Kate Locke, I mean Kate Cook.
Kate Cook's an internal city.
Ah.
And we didn't give them to Kate, we gave them to a city program.
here's what I would recommend. If,
Okay, Kate Scarbuck said, if it has to be a city something, would you want to contribute to the utility assistance fund? That's a city run
That's a
program.
great idea as well.
It'll be best.
well, what about about that is the contingency plan. So if
Love that.
we can't
Yeah.
do the Growing Home, which
Yes.
directly impacts people, we put the balance of our money into the city
That's-
utility fund.
Do we need
Fantastic.
to have another vote on that?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so could be.
So I'll move that if we can't give the money to Growing Home, that it instead goes to the Utility Assistance Fund.
Then I'll second.
Okay, and then there's a second. So any discussion or questions?
I would like to, how does that work? I mean.
I think what it would do is it would give a bigger pool of funding
Uh-huh.
for people to be able to request, like my utilities I'm behind or I need to keep them
Yeah.
on. So it would just increase the pool so that more people could directly be impacted by that.
And how has that worked in this? I mean, I like the idea.
Mhm.
How has that worked in the city? So it's going to primarily be low income or somebody who suddenly
Right.
got hurt and can't pay their bills.
Yeah.
I think it's been a well-used program, especially through the pandemic.
Right.
And I think it's also one that many residents are aware
In fact, I think
Thank you.
during the pandemic, Alan, no, that's a great question. During the pandemic, we had actually asked that question. And Mayor Pro Tem had said it was definitely much more used as people were losing jobs and things of that nature.
Please thank Kate. That's a great.
Just a quick related question. Is there a moratorium on shut-offs during the cold months?
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
Oh, for God's sakes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to,
Now we could go to the PSC.
if our first plan isn't available, we move to putting the additional funding to our utility assistance program at the city. Any further discussion? Good questions. Okay. Hearing no other questions or discussion, all in favor of the backup plan?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? And does anyone abstain? So moved. Thank you all. And I think what we do for, because I was thinking too, as Mayor Pro Tem was talking and sort of to Michelle's project, then if we have projects, we will directly appeal to the city council and we'll try to figure out the dollar amount. And that could even give us more flexibility for the funding. So, even though we're not necessarily going to be the direct agents of how funding is handled, we can be the direct agents of how we propose projects to city council. So
If anything, I think it's a better.
I kind of
better plan than
could.
you have a pot of money and then you have to
Well, you-
go to them for everything you
You
want.
suggested two to keep in mind, two very expensive projects,
Yes. And
very much needed.
And I do believe that at some point we have to, I know those conversations are happening all the time with new development. And I know this is a little bit tangential, so I'll get off of it shortly, but with the new development happening and things growing, I'm not sure where the miss is. And I know there are maybe smarter people than me outside that are, doing these things, but this is a need. And I do think that, I know you're advocating, I know we're all advocating. You've been, a champion for affordable housing since I've known you.
Failed.
And long before.
Failed.
No, what you've done has made a difference, but there's so much more to do. So much more to do. So,
Yeah, we're like 15, 20 years behind the power curve on that.
and Westminster not having like a shelter of any sort, it's challenging. So,
Well, that does fit one of the city's goals, or was it an objective to reduce homelessness to X amount.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, my question was, are we talking about a roof or a ride? We're talking about a roof.
Yeah.
So I think to move it that direction, I think would be a good thing.
And that's what Kate was trying to explain to me, that the mentality is shifting toward housing. And I think Adams County just recently had last week, I think they had some kind of housing, probably Kate went.
They've had a few in the last few months. Adams County, one of the cities in Adams County hosted a bunch of all the other cities and the county and the electeds to talk about it as a collective. I think Adams County is doing a lot, at least from what I'm seeing on.
Regionally, I can speak to, working in a legislator's office. Probably once a week, we get some sort of invitation to a webinar or a meeting, all centering on the affordability crisis. At different levels. From the unhoused to the unattainability.
Yeah,
So
definitely. And it's not just our neighborhood.
correct.
It's
It's
all
everywhere.
others,
It's
like
everywhere.
Every place you
The whole
go,
country.
it's number
Yeah.
1, 2, 3
It needs to
issues.
be a regional effort.
Yep.
Well, thank you. I think, I do see our work as very much aligned to that work,
Mhm.
in the long term. So, okay, great.
Cool.
So we are pretty much done with the agenda, and I know we added a few things, but I think we got a big piece off. So that's good. Does everyone feel pretty comfortable with that?
Mhm.
So now, moving on to any community updates, anything that we need to be aware of, something that we should be present for, or something to keep in mind. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem did say, I wasn't able to make Monday, but I know you did. And thank you for your representation. And
I was there too.
I probably should have brought it up while Dave was on the screen. A couple of suggestions I would make. 3 out of 4 of the proclamations the other night were inward looking.
Yes.
They were either given to city employees who, I don't object to city employees being recognized. I think we need to do more of that. There would have been 4 inward looking because they wanted to give it to the Inclusivity Board. And like I announced Monday night, I'm Scots Irish. I don't get the Italian American thing. And that's low hanging fruit. The first thing comes to mind is the Valenti family, who's been here forever. So to simply give these proclamations to each other is
Kind of unusual.
it's incestuous.
Yes.
So can I just give a little?
INCES. And
Spelling bee, nationals.
I bet you did.
that was one thing. And then the other thing, the only social medium I use is Facebook, which I should, no, that doesn't matter. Anyway, get off track here. The Facebook post, at least it was done in the city's name. I suspect it wasn't a city staffer who did it. But it didn't even mention, not only did it not mention the Inclusivity Board, I don't care if it mentions me, nothing. But it didn't mention the Inclusivity Board, and it didn't mention the person who accepted the proclamation.
Jacqueline?
Yeah, it didn't mention her until I did a reply. It only mentioned the city councilor.
Two city councilors, right? Or the councilor who was giving?
Well, yeah.
So Baker.
It mentioned Mr. DeMott and characterized him as
To her as a Native
characterized him
American.
as a Native American,
Yes.
which is not true. He has according to him, some Native American heritage. That doesn't make you a Native American. That's what the post said.
Yeah.
It was about him as a Native American.
Right.
Didn't mention the Inclusivity Board, didn't even mention the person who received the proclamation.
It's not too inclusive, is it?
No, but it reflects what I started with,
Yeah.
being inward looking. And, it would have been, it would have been a no brainer, no brainer, maybe no brainer to come up with an Italian American citizen of Westminster.
Being that we have chanchos and polentes.
Yeah, there's lots of low hanging fruit out there, not to suggest that Italian Americans are low hanging fruit, but it would have been easy.
I think that these two proclamations were unique in character to what council generally does with proclamations. They're most often requests made by either staff or an external organization.
Yeah.
And I think most of you know the history of it was actually the Indigenous people was made by a staff recommendation, and council had made some adjustments, and that's how it got back to us. So by us, I mean Inclusivity Board. So generally, they are almost always an external organization accepting it, and we don't even give them unless they come. So by we, the council does it. So very different. Monday night was different in many, many ways. Also, generally, the proclamations are not given to a member of council.
Donna. Hi, Donna. Good to see you. You're
Got a hand up.
Yeah, your hand up. So please, if you have something to say.
Well, thank you for recognizing me. I'm sorry I'm late. We had an employee where I live that's been here for a number of years, had a little retirement thing this evening. It took a little bit longer. I just wanted to piggyback a little bit on what Rich is saying. I was not able to be there the other night. I wanted to be, but I'm still not driving much at night. But I did watch. And first of all, Rich, I thought you handled the whole thing very well.
Thank you,
I applaud you, and I think you did it in the right way. And everything that you are saying is so right. I was appalled. I just was very disappointed that it was, like you say, so inwardly, and particularly because I believe so much in this board, but we were not even recognized or in any way acknowledged. And that was sad to me, because I think that the city council is missing some things down the line. So I just wanted to add that, since I got in on listening to this conversation, and I felt like we should all be very proud of the fact that Rich did what he did, and that we had another representative there from the Inclusivity Board. I just wish it would have been handled a little differently.
No, and we appreciate, both of you being there. So,
I actually felt blindsided by being called up for the.
I did too.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
Were we supposed to be?
I was assuming that if it was for Columbus Day based on Italian American heritage, that there was an Italian American heritage person
There
that would
was
accept it. There was.
Dave DeMont.
Well,
And Counselor Emmons.
That's why Dave
But-
represented it.
That's right.
But my recollection is when Inclusivity Board had their subcommittee meeting on the two proclamations
Right.
with Mayor Pro Tem, the final agreement
separate them.
We
was
would
they
be
would
there
be
to
separate,
support.
but you
Yep.
would be there to support both.
Yep.
We
And
weren't
so
going
that
to
was-
accept them.
Well, that's why when I was called up, I went up and
Yes, and
tried to be nice.
I think that was, it was great leadership, Rich, so thank you
So-
for doing that.
Bit my tongue.
So
You just said.
So
I did announce I was
Monday
Scots
night was
Irish.
more of an exception than the rule.
What about Rich's point? I mean, this isn't really something for the inclusivity board, but
It is.
no, the issue of awarding proclamations to city departments, isn't there
Well,
another mechanism for
You know,
recognizing the fine work of our city
Mm,
departments?
I don't object to that. I don't object to that. But,
We also give service awards for
yeah.
at council meetings,
What
so
were the
anybody who's been, what is
proclamations?
it, 20 years or more.
What were the two proclamations?
Oh, one was
Sarah
geez.
Namella did it for,
engineering,
Yeah.
for planners. It was
Yeah.
like National Planners Week or something like
Yeah,
that. And
and
then,
I would,
I don't remember the other ones.
it just seemed like there should be citizens of the city who
exactly.
who receive it as, as representing a larger group,
Well,
obviously.
and the planning commission chair was there for the planning
Yeah.
award.
All I can add is this is an example of where roles in city governments differ because all the proclamations that were done in the city of Milwaukee were done by the mayor of the city of Milwaukee. They didn't go to the council.
Well, technically, the mayor signs them.
Yeah,
mayor
the
does
mayor
sign.
signs them. And if you listen to them, they're all
And,
the mayor's voice.
And, you could just take this as venting. I've been sitting on this since
To
Monday.
add a little extra context to this, add a little extra context, when they were doing something to honor Jewish Americans.
Mhm.
And I'm a Jew, so I thought, okay, I'm going to show up and listen to it, and it didn't happen. And I sent to Counselor Azadi to say, I thought this was happening tonight. And they said, well, they couldn't find anyone.
Couldn't find a Jew in Westminster.
That's right. I said, well, I'm sure there's from Schoenberg Farms, there's a relative still around that you could find. And there was a national Jewish women's group up north that donated a lot of books to one of the elementary schools.
Yeah.
You could have found there. So Counselor Azadi had said, can we redo this? So then they did find a Jew. They found a rabbi who.
Well, I think maybe that does bring up a point. And thank you, Rich, for your wisdom. Donna, thank you, and all of you who have shared. But I think as proclamations emerge, and if we are involved in them, maybe one of the things we can advocate for is great. We're honoring Indigenous people. Who is
Let's
going to
find someone
actually
to do it.
represent the
It
acceptance?
takes a little effort.
Yes.
It's easy to turn inward and say, well, let's just give it to the inclusivity board.
It's fine, but you know what?
We should be doing the same for Pride and for
We should.
Juneteenth and
Yes.
all the other.
All right,
Yes.
100%.
That's what we're gonna
yes.
do, let's set that example.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Good.
100%.
And maybe our role is to help
Yep.
identify those people.
Well, with the,
Donna.
Yeah, I'm gonna see Donna's hand.
let her.
Donna,
Oh,
please.
yes, I wanted to kind of, again, say that I felt the same way, Rich, as you did. I wanted to call you that night because
No, you didn't.
I was so frustrated. But I wanted, as a point of clarification, I was under the impression at the meeting where this came up that Mayor Pro Tem DeMott, did he say that he listened? I thought what he said, or it wasn't that night. It was when we had that subcommittee meeting.
Yeah.
I thought he said that he had listened and that he was going to reconsider. I do not remember him saying that he was, but as to proclamations anyway. Did I misunderstand him?
No, he did say, we did get him to, yeah, the consensus was that he would do them as separate proclamations.
Right.
Because our immediate concern was the fact that they were being combined. And we didn't necessarily, we weren't going to tell him, well, I mean, we had personal opinions about both of them, but we felt that that was sort of a compromise and that we would be there to support
Right.
him.
Right.
That was the agreement that would happen at that subcommittee.
Okay. I thought maybe I had misunderstood and I wanted to make sure that I was clear in case somebody talked to me about it. So thank you for clarifying that for me. I appreciate it.
Sure, of course.
I can remember when the 200th anniversary of the founder of my faith, we asked for and worked, I think it was Kate at the time, in a different job, which is how I met her, and developed a proclamation honoring that. And then it was, I don't know, a year or two later, there was a proclamation, it was World Religion Day or something like that. And we were specifically asked if we would accept that, because we accept all religions. So then you don't have that problem. Well, did you give it here? Did you give it here? Did you give it here? And it would have been fine if there'd been a crowd and everybody accepted it. But there was some effort to find someone in the community to accept the proclamation.
The clerk's office does make that effort,
Yeah.
but through only so many channels. In most cases, an external group makes the request, council approves it. If it comes
Like the
from
first-
council, then it falls on staff to find someone, and the clerk's office had mixed success in that. In a lot of cases, they do, and a lot they don't. And so in those cases, the proclamation may still be written and shared, but not given out. at
Well,
meetings.
Justin's had a
And
good suggestion.
These are
that
council's
Use us.
guidelines currently for how they do it.
Well, can they ask us for help?
Sure, absolutely.
That's-
And certainly the clerk's office can. I can tell
Yeah.
Debbie that she's welcome to
I think
ask
that's
the board.
That's a great suggestion.
Very valid.
One of the groups we often, or her team often goes to is the Westminster Historical Society, because a lot of the proclamations and the work is acknowledged as they have tie into that in some way, so.
And I didn't mean to suggest less proclamations by any stretch of the imagination.
You can go ahead and suggest.
Honor
that,
everybody.
that's fine.
Like I told Dave, let's honor everybody.
You said that at the subcommittee meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that might be something that as we know of these things, let's start thinking about how we
Yeah.
can support.
Yeah, the clerk can come to us
Mhm.
for help in finding that.
Yep, I'll let her know.
We're happy to do so.
Easy email.
Please give us a little time.
That's also part of the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anything else for everyone before we wrap?
Well, I just wanted to say, I went to, it was on 70, I can't even remember what it was called. On 73rd Avenue, that was a couple weeks ago. We had a Westminster event. Was it World Music Day or something?
Well, no, that was part of it. It was.
Arts Week.
Yes, Arts Week.
Okay.
Yeah,
It
and
was,
first time I heard of it,
and
surprised.
it's like, where is the publicity for it?
Well,
They had nice things, but it was so
Very
ill attended.
well, I can give a little context to that. So Kate inherited, Kate Cook inherited this sort of initiative that Rich Newman, predecessor, had connected. But we've also been talking about, how can we more succinctly, because, I was representing the district, the school district at the time. We want to also do an arts festival in the spring, and it's like, great. How can we bring our resources? Because I'd like to, for me, it's not just about, of course, it's about our students, but it's also about our local artists. It's about, our local advocates for arts and things. So it was pretty quiet this year because I think it was just like they sort of inherited. I think the intention is that they're going to really, we're all going to sit down,
I understand.
and we might even connect with some of you. I know,
Well, I spoke to her actually there.
Yeah.
Said, I'd like to be involved in these conversations, especially talking about the future of the arts in Westminster and potential arts center, which Up in.
Because I felt so bad. At least I was able to buy a beer, the last beer,
The last beer.
the last,
Sounds
well,
like a movie.
non-IPA beer.
Yeah.
But, they had these young people, the Hmong doing a dance, and they were I think it was mariachi women, young
Yes,
women.
yeah, I don't remember
And I'm
that.
thinking,
That's
but
awesome.
there's nobody here listening.
Yeah.
It felt so
And
sad.
Kate had organized a Shakespeare in the parking lot, so we had like theater going on in the parking lot.
Oh,
So we're going to, and actually it'll be something that I'll reconvene with you because, on a separate note, we have that external advisory committee that just
Good.
ground to a halt.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna push that back, so.
Good, good.
But yes, in
Yeah,
answer
count
to
me
your
in.
question, but that could also
Yeah.
be something once we solidify that. Because in itinerations in the past, we were asked, like, how could we, look at entertainment from a lens of diversity and inclusion? And we actually had some success before the pandemic shifted everything to.
Yeah, that's sure.
So, so yes.
but but what they did was good.
Yes.
It was just
Yeah.
so sadly attended.
Well, yeah, and I missed a lot of stuff because I just had other plans made. Then by the time I found out about it,
Yeah.
I went when the thing started and was able to have some chats with some of the artists, some of the sculpture artists, which was fun.
Wow.
Made some connections I hadn't had before.
But I do have to give the city some credit though, because I do, ever since
They
Mark, I
kept
think
it going.
Mark came in, I've noticed a lot more like emails coming out to folks that sign up for newsletters and stuff. So there's a little bit more communication coming out of the
The
city. And I do
communication
have,
has improved.
it's
marginally.
improving a
Yeah,
lot.
It has.
But I missed out
has.
on the notification that was happening too.
Yeah.
And that's straight up my
Yeah.
street too.
Yeah,
You know
well,
what
yeah,
I mean?
me
Like
too.
that would have been my
I
thing.
saw a Facebook post. My reaction was Westminster has an arts week.
Yeah.
You
And I'm
know?
thinking, well, if the city manager can send out, the postcards that say, we've identified $100 million in savings for the water and sent that out to all the residents. Did you all get it? How come I got it?
I got
No, I got
But
it.
I'm saying if we can do
I
that,
got it, but I didn't get it.
then postcards to all residents would have
Campaign literature.
worked.
Exactly.
I don't manage those programs
know.
for those staff and I don't really.
Oh, come on, Cody. I thought you did everything.
No.
I mean, I can talk to them.
Yeah.
But as long as we're talking about events that are happening, Artifacts is happening and you supported that. So I would
Yes.
highly recommend that you try to visit. It runs through the 29th. It's not open the 21st, which is West Fest. But it is Wednesday through Friday each week, 4 to 7, Saturdays, and Sundays, 11 to 4. So
Did the
through
premiere
the
happen?
29th,
The
which is
opening night?
I'm sorry. it
Did the
already
opening night
opened.
already happen? Oh, shoot.
Yeah, it started the
I
7th.
thought we were gonna.
Also, Westy Fest is the 21st, so.
Yeah.
So if we could all make maybe a concentrated effort to stop by in different capacities. that would-
And
Yeah, I think
Hopefully I'll
Artifacts would be
remember to
really
wear a
nice to
badge.
support that.
Yeah, where you're
And,
at.
support them and Artifacts especially since you've just contributed to their success. Lots of, community meetings and open houses, so check the city's calendar because there's a lot going on until the weather changes, I think, so.
Thanks for telling us about the housing
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah, it's finding the link in 3 seconds or less.
Yeah,
I'll send you the thing.
and the whole Sheridan Green thing is not decided yet either. So, there were definitely some
I don't even know.
suggestions made last night, which I don't know if it might end up opening up discussion for like perhaps, spending a little more time figuring out what to do with that location, which I would certainly hope for. And I would hope that the city might learn something from this experience rather than being a very passive, like putting notices in newspapers and hoping people come to them. That we might, in future occasions where we have these opportunities to be more proactive about creating an idea and seeing whether or not we can pull together partners and funding to make something unique happen. So I get it, though, that the city is not necessarily staffing in the same way that it has in the past. So that may be problematic, but I remain hopeful. So.
Good.
Yeah, and for those big, long-term sustainable pieces, it's going to take all of us. It's not just city, it's going to be everyone,
Sheridan Green survey is still open through the 17th.
Correct.
So it's a banner on the homepage if you want to contribute to that.
Yeah, and they will be discussing it at one of the November council meetings, and I can't remember, I want to.
It might even be before the end of October. Oh, November 13th.
13th,
Yep.
yeah, okay, good.
I suggested an arts school, a school of arts there. But nobody else, I don't think.
No, there's
I
a,
don't-
there's a lot of interest, at least from the
Like that in
community
Washington?
itself, there's a lot of interest in
Good.
community
Metropolitan
classes.
Arts Academy.
Where
It's
is
a
that?
K. It's right where the old Branham.
Oh, okay,
Yeah. But
never mind.
But no, but the Arts Center is such a, that would talk about a vehicle for diversity and social commentary and awareness. So I mean.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And I have a vision for that.
Resource center is still on the radar too.
More than just arts, it's a cultural center.
Yes.
Arts, cultural, and conference center.
Yeah.
Love it.
We're past time.
We are.
So we officially then will adjourn. Thank you very much
Thank
for all
you.
your
Thank
time.
you.
Thank you.
Good meetings.
Thanks for letting me vent.
Thank you
That's
all.
okay.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you,
A little bit of
Julian.
a
Thank you,
venti
Doug.
evening, that's all right, you know what?
Made my face hot.
Seasons change.
Push the leave button. It's red.
No, I don't want to touch anything.
Touch it.
Oh, no,
Just
no.
touch it.